Hello there, welcome back. I'm Dee Dust. Tonight, I'm going to be reading one of my own stories. My Abuela's House. When I was 8 or 9, I used to spend a lot of time at my grandmother's house after school. Mom worked late into the night most days, and it was easier to get me off to school on time if I just stayed with Abuela. I didn't like it for many reasons. The fact that there were no kids on the block even close to my age to play with was the biggest one, though. Hanging around outside and climbing the one tree in the yard got boring after a few hours, and I knew better than to go inside with Abuela unless I absolutely had to. That was a couple of decades ago now, though one of those days is still very clear in my mind and has always made me wonder. Abuela's house had a deck that came off the second floor and was walled up underneath. It was used as storage for the lawnmower, a few bikes, and a doghouse that had never seen a dog for as long as I had been alive. The walls were a thin plywood that had already begun to splinter from age and weather, enough so that a bored kid could get down on their belly and wriggle in between the opening despite there being a padlock on it. It was something for me to do. But the reason why I spent so much time under the deck was because of an orange tabby cat. This cat prowled the neighborhood, but didn't seem to belong to anyone in particular. When the day was too hot or too rainy, I could count on finding her under there, sprawled out lazily on a piece of dirty cardboard and watching me with narrow yellow eyes. She didn't like being picked up, but I was very proud of the fact that I was permitted to pet her. It had taken me forever to get to that point with her. That day, after I got bored of poking at the tomato plants, I crawled in with a few scraps of ham to give the kitty. I was thinking of calling her Pumpkin or Squash, something simplistic and kind of stupid now that I think about it. I know I was disappointed when I saw the cardboard empty and no sign of a slinking cat anywhere in the storage. I didn't leave though. The day was hot and there was nothing else to do in the yard. The warped joins of the door let in more than enough light for me to see by, so I dropped the ham on the cardboard and went on to my second favorite activity to do. The stairs for the deck were more poorly joined wood and extended the storage area a little bit. The first time I had crawled under it, I noticed that there were some holes at the base of the concrete slab that connected the stairs to the yard. It looked like someone had dug around there for a while. It wasn't an animal, I could tell, because even when the dirt was muddy from rain that dripped through, there was never any animal tracks to be found. It was Abuela, I was sure of it. She had come out one day and buried some treasure under the stairs where no one could see her. Hiding things. Money, food, books, jewelry. It was just one of the many strange things she would do. The government was out to get her, you see, and she had to make sure none of her secrets would ever be found. I was used to finding things hidden in strange places at her home. And at that age, I thought that hiding things was a perfectly normal thing to do. It was fun finding the things she hid, usually. Like most people with untreated mental illness, she had her ups and downs, and at that point, she was hitting the very low point of a downswing. She never got violent or dangerous, at least not for me. But there's only so many times I could stand to hear exactly what the spies or crazies would do if they got a hold of me. Her list included rape, murder, and cannibalism, just to name a few things. And the order of the list was different for each person she saw walking down the block. That's a whole other topic, though, and I was telling you about the hole I was excavating. The only shovel we had was for snow, and it was in the garage I couldn't get into without going into the house. It's not a problem for a kid with plenty of sticks and no fear of getting my hands dirty. I could easily spend the day down there, scratching away at the dirt and pulling it back to make the hole wider, pushing down with the sticks to see if I could find any sign of where the buried treasure was. Don't judge me, it beat peeling bark off of trees. I was close to making a breakthrough. Half of my arm could fit into the hole that I was digging, and I had never gotten that far before. Usually I would come home from school and find most of the dirt piled back in the hole, forcing me to start all over again. Abuela must have been too busy watching who was watching her to check the hole. I don't remember how long I spent under there digging. The sun was still up because I was able to see it when the dirt crumbled away from the treasure. It looked like a thick wire bent at a sharp angle. I reached down to brush more dirt away to see where it led to, but the moment I touched it, the thing moved. I fell back in surprise with a yelp. It was a snake! That was the first thing to enter my head. But I was wrong. Horribly wrong. As I watched, the wire straightened out into something that wasn't a wire at all, but a leg. A long, spindly leg with unnatural joints on it. The two-part leg that was unfurled was longer than my arm. It wasn't until the dirt shifted and even more legs came out that I began to realize that what I was looking at were spider legs. They patted at the ground in a slow, methodical manner that made my whole body turn cold despite the heat of the day. I was frozen with utter terror at what I was seeing. It wasn't possible. Spiders that big just weren't possible. But they were. At least that's what my eyes were telling me. I was broken out of my still state when the leg stopped moving, and the spider lifted its main body out of the ground. It was bulbous and hairy. The dirt-matted strands kept me from seeing any details, but the shape reminded me most of a daddy-long-legged spider, one with a body that was the size of my head. I screamed, I think. I don't really know. All I remember is scrambling over the lawnmower and scraping my arm against the doghouse as I threw myself at the door. In my blind panic, I tried to just shove the door open. I wasn't thinking about anything logical like the padlock. I was just looking to escape. The door refused to open, of course, even as I beat my hands against it and cried out for help. I looked back and could see the spider was following me. It had already come over the mower, and in the more open space, it had lifted itself up. The thing was taller than me, and it was still moving towards me. The extra jolt of fear cleared my mind enough that I remembered to drop down to the ground and crawl through the gap in the doors. It was a tight fit that was never a problem when I had all the time in the world. My shoulders and stomach caught on every little splinter there was as I kicked and clawed my way out this time. My mind was filled with a horrible image of the spider catching me by my legs. That was enough of an incentive to get me through it. I tore around the deck, focused only on getting inside and away from that thing. I stopped, though, when I came around the other side and was faced with the stairs. I was panting as I looked at them, and the rather large gaps between each step that led down into the storage area. The gaps I had never paid any mind to before that day now looked like a trap to me. As I stared at them, I swear I could see the spider under them, still moving and searching for a way out, for a way to get at me. As I stood there, I started to hear something, a soft scratching sound as something dragged across the wood. The spider's legs. I could see them as it moved, and I backed away, watching the spindly limbs try to come out through the cracks. There was no way I was going up those steps. The scraping got louder and more frantic as I moved away, becoming more aggressive as the spider lost its prey. Running back around to the gate of the backyard put me close to the deck entrance again. I didn't stop to look at it. The scraping noise continued as I ran for the front door. It was locked, of course, but I used both my hands to pound on it, calling out to Abuela to open the door for me. An eternity passed before she let me in, and I fell into the house nearly crying from relief. For all her strange beliefs, Abuela never believed me about the spiders. Kind of funny when you think about it. I never bothered to tell Mom about them when she came home, either. I knew that if I couldn't convince my crazy grandmother about it, there was no way I was going to convince her. Mom met a guy after that, and we moved to an apartment with him that winter. I still stayed over with Abuela sometimes, but I never saw the spider again after that. I stayed well away from under the deck and backyard just to be sure, though. The memory of that day is too clear for me to dismiss it as a child's imagination. I was never very creative as a kid. I guess I could call it some sort of hereditary or even learned issue from my Abuela, but it's never happened again. I've lived a perfectly ordinary life that's been free of oversized spiders. I just don't know, really, if what I saw was real or not. So I wonder about my memory, what I saw, and I just can't come to any conclusion. Not one that can satisfy everything, along with one fact that became clear to me a month after it happened. I never saw that orange tabby cat wandering the neighborhood ever again. Thank you for giving me a listen. If you like my story, please like, comment, subscribe. Feel free to share with me your thoughts, and if you have any story that you'd like to hear from me, drop it in a comment and I'll go check it out. Good night, everyone.